To me, the Living Building Challenge is really important, and I'm a firm believer, and I think that most people can also say this, is that we want to leave the world in a better place than when we came here, or instead of taking away from all of the environment and things like that, we would like to make it a little bit better for our children and our children's children and so on down the line. The Living Building Challenge, the best way to talk about it is in terms of a flower. The way that a flower is place-based, it sits in one area. It doesn't need to really take from the environment. The sun provides all of its energy. The water, in order to generate like nutrients for the flower, is all from right in that area. And so you don't really need to search outside. It's beautiful and all of the above. And so the Living Building Challenge really takes these petals and the idea of a flower and brings it to life by naming 7 petals. So there's sight, there's water, there's energy, there's materials, there's health, there's beauty, and there's equity. And what all of these petals do is they really are like the guidelines, and there's 20 imperatives that fall underneath these petals, and they all work together to create a building that meet the really strict standards.
The Living Building Challenge, I think the easiest way to explain it is that it's really the next step in green building certification. And so if you look at this building behind me, it's clearly a very different building in a lot of ways. It's a building that's designed to fit into the beautiful environment we have here. And most importantly, I think it's a building that's designed to perform in an incredibly sustainable way. Zero net energy performance, it needs no energy from the electrical grid over a year. It creates all of its own water. So it's really to be a much more positive influence on the environment rather than a negative influence on the environment.
I really like to think of the Living Building Challenge as a philosophy. It's a different way of thinking about living in the world, and being part of the world and being a part of nature. It's also it's a system that really thinks in systems, which is the way nature works. It's really a way of thinking about how do you integrate your buildings and your lifestyles in such a way that you're having the most positive impacts on nature and the environment as well.
I think to me, it's probably about creating better places to be. And I'm an architect, so I tend to think of these things as pretty broad. So as an architect, I think about environments and what we build our environments. What the Living Building Challenge is really doing is saying we should need to care about what that is.
these buildings will have a tremendous impact on society, and I hope these buildings will inspire people to start thinking about different ways they interact with the world. We certainly hope that our building's going to have that effect. We've designed it in such a way that we want to invite the public to come here. We want to invite the public into the building. We want to invite the public into the landscape surrounding the building to really see how does this building integrate into the environment and how do we use the environment to make our building be more efficient. I think if we can see more of these buildings being built around the world and around the country, and as people start to see that these buildings really make a lot of sense, and hopefully they'll be inspired to start making these changes and building these kind of buildings themselves.
I think these kinds of buildings really can help shape the way people learn and think and cooperate. And there are a lot of reasons for that. First of all, a project like this, of course, includes a huge amount of cooperation and collaboration to make it happen. But I think even more subtly, a building like this is an incredible collaboration amongst many, many different systems. The water system that collects rainwater from the sky, the solar photovoltaic system that collects electrical energy from the sun, the composting toilet system that takes human waste and turns it back into a valuable nutrient. This building in many ways actually reduces the concept of waste. And I think that's something that can really shape the way people not only think about buildings, but think about their lives, the way all of these different technologies, all of these different areas of expertise can integrate to make one thing, one building that operates better than it ever could have had all this collaboration not taken place. And I think there's a very powerful lesson in that.
Really, the goals for the Living Building Challenge are quite aggressive, and the stakes are really high. So if you miss something, you don't achieve the pedal. You don't get to be a living building, or you don't get to have that sort of portion of it. And so because the stakes are so high, you have to really be paying attention to your work. And so integrating the design team's work and getting them thinking in a synthetic way is kind of critical to the process. And that expands, right? So it's not just the design team and a bunch of engineers, but it's also the owner and their stakeholders, and then to some degree understanding what that means to the community and to the users and all. Integrating that as a learning experience for the design team, it's a learning experience for the owner, it's a learning experience for the community, as you start to do things that are uncommon in terms of processes and uncommon in terms of the outcomes and the goals.
It's an excellent demonstration of what universities do. In my view, universities help develop new theory, they help develop new technologies, and really importantly, they help with the transition from theory to practice. They take things that are only in the minds of scientists or on paper or in computer programs and actually make them so that they can work. And so I think this building does a great job of symbolizing what universities are here to do, which is to not just be at the leading edge, but to be at the bleeding edge, to really test out these new technologies and demonstrate that they can work. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we started this building process, not everybody could do a building like this, and I think it's partially the role of a university to try those challenges.
There's more students than just me working on this project here. There's a lot of different students around the campus that are working on sustainable projects and different things through different initiatives. And for instance, some of them that are the green dorms. There's also a sustainable cafe. There's many, many other projects that are taking place on campus and are really going to change this entire campus and hopefully the entire world.
My name's Howard, and I'm a student in the Environmental Studies department, and I'm taking a class right now on appropriate sustainable technologies, and I'm doing a best practice research case on different universities and super green residence halls that they have. The university should take on the challenge of having a living building, because I think not only do they have the community, but they also have a lot of the resources. So we have, you know, a biology department, a college of engineering, an environmental studies department, and if all of those departments and other departments in the university came together to collaborate on this along with a really good architect team, then, you know, having that living building on campus, that is going to play a part in whether or not I decide to come to this university. So the buildings that we have use a lot of energy, and a lot of that energy is used inefficiently, and there hasn't really been a lot of talk about improving that efficiency. And in terms of CO2 emissions, buildings pollute a lot more than the transportation sector, but there's all this talk about being more fuel efficient with cars, and now electric vehicles are a big thing, but there's not a lot of talk of that with buildings, which to me is an important aspect.
The problem with buildings today is when you enter them, you're not exactly inspired. When you see the ceilings, they're low, that you feel cramped, and you're not exactly excited to be there. When you have a building that's open and it's bright with natural light, you automatically feel, I want to be here, like what am I doing today?
With these super green residence halls or living buildings, one of the really cool aspects about them is their beauty. So I think the beauty really is going to help promote productivity because people are going to want to go to these buildings and work in these atmospheres. And right now I just don't know if there's a lot of buildings here on campus that I find that really does that.
Our project will hopefully be able to change students' lives and the faculty that are involved with the construction of a new residence halls. Right now they're kind of like not an afterthought, but it's built really fast and quickly, and if we can take a step back and to really look at what would be best for the students, if a living building challenge would be best for the students, then we can take advantage of that. The aspects that we really like is that they're just so inspiring for different students who are involved with the project. And so when they see it, they can stop and say, hey, how could I get involved with this? And how can I be involved with these new buildings?
We're not going to be improving the world we live in if we give people a lot of credit for trying. But we are going to be improving the world if we give people credit for trying and succeeding when we're trying to meet these very strict requirements. And so I think this new emphasis on performance of buildings is what's really going to start to improve the world we live in, and making sure that the high aspirations we're trying to meet, we actually are meeting them. And if we're not meeting them, we're figuring out how we can meet them so that we reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, on materials, that we live in a cleaner, safer world, and ultimately a more sustainable world.
My name's Howard, and I want a living building.
My name is Kevin Thomas, and I desire a living building.
My name's Nicole Davenport, and I want a living building.
We are the community. We want a living building.
Yeah.
My name's Mike Lucas, and I need a living building.
My name is Peter Rausch, and I want a living building.
My name is Michael Frawley, and I want a living building.
It's a great day to be a Bronco.